What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So the last time you saw the STI, we had just started tuning. So we ran into a little issue. The knock that we were getting from the motor was not due to the engine load. The tuner, he emailed me and asked me to check and make sure that all the timing marks and everything line up. So in the tune, in wide open throttle, the timing was off about 5 or 6 degrees. He would request, say, 13 to 15 degrees timing, and the motor was running 20 to 21 degrees. So I took the timing cover off and all of that and found that our timing marks on the driver's side cams were not lining up right. So after a little research, I think that it's due to the block being decked and the heads have been milled a couple times. So that brought the heads closer into the center of the motor, which in turn changed the length of the timing belt, because the timing belt doesn't change, obviously, but the motor actually got a little smaller. So the distance, so here's what we have. So the distance between here and this timing mark is going to be a little shorter because the heads and the block were decked. So that brings it in a little, and I didn't go with a thicker head gasket. So I'm pretty sure that that is what contributed to our timing being off. So what I did is I went ahead and ordered some IAG adjustable idler pulleys. I'll have a link in the description down below. But pretty much what they do is they're offset pulleys. So here is our original pulley. The ones that we ordered, the hole is offset, so we can get this closer or farther away down here. So say it's right here, we can adjust our little bolt and we can move it this way or that way. So what we can do is we can put some tension on the belt with those pulleys, and we should be able to adjust the cam gear and the timing. So that should be here Friday. So hopefully by the weekend I can get it back running again. So yeah, I did have to take all of this stuff back apart. Anyways, we did get a bunch of new parts in. Since I had the timing belt and everything off, I just went ahead and I put on our new 11mm Subaru oil pump. So we got that on there. I did fill it with Vaseline this time. That way I don't have any issues with trying to get this thing primed like we did the first time. Hopefully it'll prime right up. I do need to pull the spark plugs out before I get it put back together so we can make sure we get it primed. We got our new oil pressure gauge, so I'm probably going to be installing that today. I think I'm going to install these today. They are our spring seats for our BC Racing coilovers. I'll show you guys later, but the spring just sits right on top of these. One of them was ruined, so I think I'm probably just going to replace both the front ones. We got our power steering rack bushings. I'll probably wait a while to install those. I'm not really sure when I want to do those. And then we got some stainless steel braided brake lines. So they need to get cleaned up just a little bit. I got a really good deal on them, so I couldn't really pass them up. I plan on doing the entire brake system. We'll put new brake pads, new rotors, new brake lines, rebuild the calipers, all that stuff here, probably in a couple weeks or something. So I did get us some OEM blue carpets right here with some floor mats. The floor mats are a really good deal. I'll link those below. The carpet's in really good condition. It's just a little dirty, so we'll go ahead and clean that up before we put it in there. Probably here in the next couple days. I got us some trunk carpet that needs to be cleaned up, but it's a lot better that was in there. And we also have our cardboard that will go in there, so that's pretty awesome. I bought one of these cam gear holders. They're amazing. It's only like $15. It makes it so you can set your timing. You can set your cams dead on, and it makes it so much easier to get the timing belt on there. You don't have to worry about the timing gear slipping, none of that stuff. So So that was definitely a good buy. Hopefully this weekend we can get this timing belt back on there and get the timing all set up right so we can continue tuning. I'm pretty confident that this will fix our issue. I don't see why it wouldn't. That's one of the only ways we can adjust the timing, unless we went with a shorter belt maybe, but it was only about a half a tooth off. So if we got a shorter belt, it would have to be one tooth shorter, which is not going to be good. I think it would just be off, set the timing off the other way. So hopefully these pulleys, these adjustable idlers, will make a big difference. But I think for today we're just going to get a couple things done. I'll try to make this kind of short. So I want to start with our coilovers. We'll get these on there, and new oil pressure gauge. This gauge, it does have a couple cool functions. You can see little buttons right there. So it has 4 different colors we can cycle through. We can set a warning light. So I can set the warning light, you know, for if we get low oil pressure, since we're not running the dash light anymore, it'll make a noise and flash at us if our oil pressure gets low. And also we can set a peak so we can see what our maximum oil pressures were, which really isn't that big a deal, but it's kind of cool. You can link these gauges together so you don't have to run 3 separate wires. You can just run one set of wires and then link each one together. Let's get started with these coilovers real quick. It should be fairly simple. I've had them off before, so hopefully the stuff isn't seized up. So we'll get those things off of there and get these spring seats on there. All right, guys, so we got the wheel off. I went ahead, made a little mark here on this bolt so we know where our camber is going to go back to. Coilovers, these coilovers are pretty simple. We just have a 12 millimeter bolt right there, a 12 millimeter back here, and then these 2 are 19s. We'll take those off, and then we just come up here and we have these 3 12 millimeter bolts to take off. Before I take these things apart, I'm going to measure our gap right here. That way we can set them back to the same as before. Pretty much all we need to do is we need to get all of these off. So this will unscrew, and then we can move all these off. Hopefully the threads aren't too bad. If they are, we can just clean them off. All right, now that took freaking 20 minutes just to unscrew this crap. There might be a faster way, but I don't know. Okay, so we got that off there. Pull this off of there. This is the old one. This one's actually in pretty decent shape. All right, so this upper one, it looks like it's in good shape up here. So I'm gonna put the spring on. That. Then we can put our new spring seat on there. And then we just screw everything back on there. All right, so we got this coilover back together. What I'm gonna do is I cleaned off all the points where these are gonna meet here and here. So we're just gonna put a little bit of anti-seize right here and in there, so it doesn't seize up on us. I'm gonna preload the spring just a little. So right there's the point where it's compressing the spring. So we're just gonna go just a little, about like that, like maybe a half a turn. So now we can screw this thing up here. Get it nice and close. All right, so we need to get 44. So we're real close. We're about a millimeter away. So I'm gonna go one full turn. And now we're at 45. So we need to go back a half a turn. All right, we're right there, right at 44. So those are good to go back on. We'll tighten these once we get it on there. I'm gonna do this one real quick and then we can throw these back on there. All right, guys, so we got these all set up. We measured this. We got it the correct length right here. We put a little bit of preload on the spring. We got our new seat in there. So we're gonna throw it back on there. So it says right here, FL, that's front left. That's looking at the car this way from the driver's seat. So that's gonna go right here. We're gonna want these to be in the right orientation there, which is gonna be like this. The L is gonna face out. So our camber is adjustable like this. Slide our bolts up in there. We'll get these top ones started. They get torqued down to 14.5. So yeah, like I said, they get torqued down to 14.5. All right, in order to get this to line back up, we're gonna have to just throw a jack on the bottom there. The top one's for the camber, so the bolt's a little different. Throw the bottom one in. Top one's gonna get the washer. This one on there, then it's just the reverse order that we did before. These bottom bolts right here are gonna get torqued down to 129. All right, guys, I just finished up on this side, so we got all our bolts on there. Our little line right here, we just made sure was back in the same spot. Tighten the collars down, so this side is good to go. I'm gonna go ahead and throw the wheel back on there and do the other side. Then we can move on to our oil pressure gauge. All right, let's open up our little box here. So it comes with, here's what I like about it. It comes with a gauge pod, but we already have one, so we don't need to use that. Probably don't need to use this little bracket here. So here is what I like about it. This little cable, this is so we can actually link gauges. So we can plug this one into this and then just right into the next gauge, right into the next gauge. Then we don't have to run a bunch of separate wires. This will be our power, our ground, headlight switch, that stuff. But here is the new sensor. So this was our old setup. This one is too big to fit underneath the alternator. So we had to have this little line that came up out of the alternator, sat on the side of the motor. This one is just, it will fit. So, all right, so it'll be pretty simple. This is gonna go on the block. We got a little connector, and then this wire will just run into the cab. A lot better than this setup, a lot cleaner looking. We can get rid of this whole situation here and this stupid sensor that does not work right. So if we come over here and look, here's what we had going on. We had to have this run down, and then we had a hose coming up, and then the sensor was on the end of that. With this one, we're just gonna be able to put this sensor right in there and run one single wire back up into the cab. So that'll make it a lot easier. So first thing we're gonna wanna do is get this old wiring out of here. So this is the old sensor wire that ran up there. We can get rid of that. I made it really simple because I knew I would have to do this. So I just put these connectors on the end of this, so it makes it a lot easier to deal with. So we got our power, our ground. We're gonna have to run a constant 12 volt power to the gauge also to so that it can store things in the gauge's memory. So we'll probably just tap into the stereo harness for that. All right, so here's our old gauge. We can just get rid of that. All right, we'll get these guys plugged in here. All right, our gauge is in there. This is gonna go through the firewall up underneath the brake booster. There is a little rubber grommet. So red's constant, orange is our dimmer, black is our ground, and white is accessory. So I'm gonna probably just, the dimmer, I'm probably not gonna use. So we'll just connect our dimmer to the accessory so that it's always on. Run our power wire and our ground. So we'll connect these two. I'm gonna run the power wire from the stereo real quick. Okay, so I just used one of those little blue splicer thingies and spliced my yellow wire to the stereo, and we'll just connect that over to the gauge. These, I gotta get a different stereo. There's so much wiring in there for these DVD decks. This thing's super old, so we're gonna probably go ahead and pick a new one of those up too soon. Come in here, make sure it works. Looks like it works. We got our different colors. Hold this button down and we can set our warning for our oil pressure. Press it once and we got colors. This will tell us our peak oil pressure. We hit that button. Looks like we got it working. So I'm gonna run this wire up to the front to the sensor real quick, and I think we'll probably be done. All right, so here's our gauge. I tapped into the stereo harness for the constant, and I tapped into the clock harness for the accessory and the ground. So we got our gauge, our wires, they run down in through there. Up underneath here, go through that grommet right there, which goes underneath the brake booster. All right, so that comes around there. It's gonna run along with the main harness here. And then it's gonna just come down here, and this will screw in to this spot right here. After we get the oil pump primed, I like to use a mechanical gauge when I prime the oil pump and start it up to make sure we got oil pressure right away. These electric gauges, they don't turn on instantly. There's a couple seconds before the gauge actually registers once the car started, and those couple seconds are pretty critical. If you start your motor with no oil pressure, then that is not good. So we'll use our mechanical gauge when we start it, and then we can plug this electric one in. All right, so that's probably gonna be it today. It's gonna be pretty short. So we just got our spring seats on for our coilovers, and we got our oil pressure gauge installed. So now we're just waiting for our adjustable idler pulleys for our timing belt. Then we can get our timing belt on there and get the oil pump primed, get it all put back together, and hopefully get back on the road. I want to get this carpet and floor mats and stuff in there, but right now it is just way too cold outside. I don't want to go through and shampoo them or anything because it's just going to take forever to dry. So we'll probably wait until next week or just whenever the weather starts to get a little better. It's supposed to be about 10 degrees for the rest of the week, so that kind of sucks. I just figured I'd come out and get a couple of these things done real quick. So thanks for watching, you guys. Go ahead and leave a comment down below, hit the subscribe button, and I will talk to you guys later.